All right, so Squidwardo is done. Level 60. He made it. This is what I spent all this time working on, trying to get this damn dragon. All that shit for this. He doesn't even make the sound, man. It's kind of disappointing that he doesn't scream. But yeah, he looks pretty badass. I like the eye. You see that? The glowy little eye thing. But yeah, he's pretty sick. And the good thing about this challenge is that since I knocked it out over here with my second alt, I went on my main, and you're able to go into your vanity, and you can filter it for known, and you'll see it there. You see that? The Void Wing. So you just press deliver item, and it'll give you the item. Then you can go ahead and equip it on any character. So that's great. That way I can be able to make alts and all that, and I can still have the dragon. So hell yeah. You know, overall, my experience with the Nightmare Challenge, it was pretty good. Like the very first time when I tried it with the Rogue, the main thing that I had in mind was like, okay, I'm gonna play a Rogue because I can go invisible, right? And then I can just assassinate everything, so I don't have to worry about really taking aggro and stuff, as long as I can pick targets one by one. The big issue with that concept is that when you come across mobs that are clustered together and you try to pull them, it's gonna pull both of them. So even if you manage to assassin strike something, the backstab ability, which is the assassin strike, doesn't really do that much damage. So it kind of feels like it's a waste of time compared to this build where I was just using straight up just Frostbolt the whole time. Frostbolt basically felt like a damn assassin strike on its own, because basically 2 shots and you get them down to like 1 HP, and then you can finish them off with a instant cast ability like Fireball or something like that. And yeah, that's pretty much the end of it. I found playing this whole mage build to be a million times better, which I'll be linking this build. I did make a preset over here on the Hero Architect, so I'll be sharing that. There it is, easy mode Nightmare Trial build. So basically what I did was I just took all the necessary abilities very early on, as fast as possible. That way you can get through it painlessly without much issues. I already see some stuff I have to adjust, so I will be doing that. But the main thing, the bread and butter, is Frostbolt and Tame Beast. That's it. That's all it needs. You get your pet runs in, takes the aggro initially, and then you Frostbolt their ass to death. And that's pretty much the gist of the entire game. It sounds boring as fuck, and yes, it kind of is, but it gets the job done and it works extremely well. So it's like, whatever. I also forgot to mention, in the macros, I really recommend you making macros for your pet. So if you do /pet attack, that will send your pet into attack, and then you also have a return button, so you can make a different one for pet follow. So /pet follow, super important for bringing the pet back whenever you send your pet in, and you don't want to get unnecessary aggro. You can always bring them right back to you. So that's really nice to have these macros. And then also in the options interface, you go down to names and turn on NPC names. Super important, because this lets it so that you're able to see if they're red tagged or if they're yellow. Because if they're yellow, then they won't aggro you, but the red ones will. So you got to be careful with that, so then you can keep your distance or know like how to approach them basically. Another thing that was super important that I wish I knew when I was leveling is Mend Pet. Mend Pet is super important because that thing, basically it's instant cast. It costs very little mana as it is without putting the talent points in it. And also, you're able to cast that while you're in Moonkin form, which is a part of my build at the end. I left this build to be level 40 right there, and then basically after that, you can just pick whatever the fuck you want, because at that point, the build is complete. You know, it's actually complete even before that. Like once you get all these talents that are for regeneration while casting, it makes mana less of an issue, and pretty much conjure water, so like sitting down and drinking your water, works in between mobs. And then also that one works pretty well. I've noticed that towards the end, when I had all those talents put in for the mana regenerating while casting, it made it so that I could last nearly the whole entire 2 minutes before I had to refill on mana again. So evocation was actually keeping up. So it was all right. It was pretty good. I mean, you could also grab other things like the innervate or whatever. You could grab that to double up. So basically you can swap between that and also the evocation, but it's all up to you. That's why I left the build pretty all open for any extra stuff you want to do, because honestly I was fine with just sitting down and drinking my juice from the mage, the conjure water. I just drink my juice for 2 seconds and then go right back into fighting, you know. So it was all right. But yeah, this was an awesome build. The main thing that I really recommend if you're going to be doing this nightmare challenge is you focus on just grinding. Open up your map, and if you're going to be like in a certain zone, let's say wetlands, and you're level 20 through 40, you want to look for the XP zones. So whenever you see the XP spot, hotspot pop up, go for that if you can. You always want to explore a little bit just to kind of get the gist of what type of mobs are in those zones, because that way you can kind of test them out and see if they're easy for you to kill, and then maybe you can just use those to farm. I don't recommend questing because they take way too long to do. I found myself going to the town, grabbing all the quests in the whole area, but there's a lot of times that let's say for example, right here in the wetlands, you could have like 2 quests that are over here on this side, like where this hardcore character died here, and then you can have a bunch of quests on the other side of the map, and then kind of other ones down here in this area. So it's like too scattered and shit. So by the time you travel to that first one, you finish that one off, and then you travel to the next one, which will probably take you like a good 15 minutes. You're wasting time instead of just killing things, because you could have just made all that XP you would have got and more by just grinding. You know what I mean? So XP is best when you just grind your ass off and then maybe jump into the occasional XP hotspot, which let me see if I can find one. You see, here's one right here. But this XP hotspot actually sucks. I was grinding here for my final levels, and it's like that little underground crevice, whatever the fuck it is, and there's not too many mobs down there. So sadly, that's the shittiest hotspot ever, and that's probably why it's still sitting there right now. It's really bad. It's not a good spot. There's not enough mobs. Here's a perfect example actually of the quests. You see how they're scattered all over the place? I got 2 quests down here, and then I got a bunch of quests up here, and then one down there. The big risk also with doing quest is that you run into elites a lot, and you also run into some extremely hard mobs. Like you'll fight like mages and shit, and the mages, oh my god, like they will rip your ass in half. When it says 500% damage, it means that, okay? So they will shoot you, and sometimes they will one-shot your ass. That's how I died 3 times, is because of getting one-shotted by those motherfuckers. So don't mess with mages ever. If you see somebody walking around with a staff, avoid them, unless you have no choice and you have to go fight them. This is why the pet is extremely important, because you'll send your pet in as a little bait, basically. You'll let the pet take damage, and then you can kind of monitor how hard he's getting hit, and you can use that as an indication as to whether or not those mobs are worth farming. You know what I mean? Because if the mob hits your pet for half its health, you already know, don't fuck with that pet. I mean, don't fuck with that mob. Because that mob will rip you to shreds, okay? It doesn't matter if you're wearing plate armor or cloth. It doesn't matter what the fuck you're wearing. It will rip you apart. So, yeah, always keep that in mind. I was wearing plate armor for the most part. And then I changed over to light armor when I got the Moonkin form, because light armor is buffed. And also the same thing with cloth armor. The only thing that really didn't make too much sense is, obviously, since you're taking 300 to 500% damage, it doesn't matter what gear you wear, they're gonna rip you to shreds anyway. So pretty much you can build however you want. If you want to go cloth, go ahead. Just don't get hit. That's it. And one of the biggest things also that I forgot to add is mana barrier. So goddamn good. Mana barrier saved my ass so many times. I highly recommend running this, because you can pop this, it will last for an entire minute, and it will absorb the first hit. Usually, sometimes it actually absorbs the hit, and then you still take a shit ton of damage, and that means that it did its job, because you probably would have died. You know what I mean? So like, that's the great thing about mana shield is I thought it was mana barrier, my bad. So mana shield is that it will absorb that damage, and then you'll be able to survive, because you don't want to get slapped. I'm telling you right now, you don't want to get slapped by anything. That's why I always send my pet in first. I'll go ahead and I frostbolt after he pulls aggro a little bit, especially when I don't trust the mobs. And then, yeah, move on to the next one. And that's basically it. Once you start getting more confident and you feel like you can out DPS the mob before they could even reach you, then you don't even really need the pet that much, and you can just spam Frostbolt until they die. I've done that a bunch of times too. But it's still recommended to let the pet go in first, because you never know. Because sometimes they can get a lucky hit in, and they can really make you feel sorry that you even like fucked with that mob, you know? So it's really challenging. So good luck if you plan on doing it. And the coolest part about it is that you gain a little bit of a respect for the mobs out here, and it actually changes your outlook on this game entirely. I feel like as if I was playing Elden Ring. Not nearly as good, but like I felt that experience of accomplishment when I finally finished it, because I was like, damn, like this whole thing was an actual challenge. This made the game difficult, and I really liked that, because it made me feel like I was more attached to the world, and I was scared of certain areas, like in the Burning Steppes, for example. It's a creepy atmosphere, and also the mobs in there are scary, because a lot of them are mages and shit. So like it adds to that tension, and it makes the world feel a little bit more dangerous than it normally would be. So it's cool. I really like this a lot. I highly recommend trying this mode if you're bored of playing a regular WoW, or you just want to challenge yourself. It's really good. Anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a thumbs up if you liked the video, thumbs down if you didn't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.